Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I wanted to take a moment to create a little video of what we're doing for the solar field. And if you look here, in the solar field, we've already got 2 frames built. And then here, I've built 2 more frames. And each frame will hold 2 panels like you saw in the picture. And we will eventually have all 14 installed. So I've got 3 more of these to make. And I'm just going to show you how we're making one of them. Is this how you would make it? Probably not. This is how I'm making it. It's going to work, and if we have any issues down the road, we'll adjust and redo things as needed, but I'm pretty sure this is fairly well overbuilt and it's going to work for what we need. So follow along. So for the first step, our posts are about 7 feet apart, so we can't use a full 8-foot crossbeam, so we're going to have to cut it down. In our situation, that comes to 85 inches. So the first thing we need to do is 2 crossbeams that are both cut down to 85 inches. The next step is our 5-foot boards. We're going to use 1, 2, 3, 4. And it's worth noting that these are 10-footers bought at a big box store cut in half. And they're not always 10 foot, sometimes they're a little over. That's why we're going to have a little overhang, and we're going to always work from one side. What you see on the bottom left is my starting point for all measurements, and then the cross beams will all be measured from the left side. That way we're consistent, and we end up with a fairly square framework in the end. So starting from the left, I'm measuring out 7.5 inches, 28 inches, 53 inches, and 74 inches. And I'll do the same on the other side. So I'll leave all these numbers that I'm spouting off in the description below. So the next step is we line them up temporarily. We'll use the square and the line that we marked to line these up, and then we'll put a screw in them and go all around until the 4 corners are done. Do a last check to make sure that we're square. I'll use this template to make sure that it's only 2.5 inches of overhang. Yours may be more or less depending on what you need. And that's all there is to this step. Our solar panels holes are 51.5 inches apart. So I'm just measuring edge to edge, 51.5 inches. And then I'll add in the middle ones. It always seems like every time I'm doing something, that next piece I need is on the other side. Between that and filming in a residential neighborhood, where it seems like every 30 seconds there's a car going by, you have to stop and start over again, I don't see how people do it for a living. Now just one last check to make sure that it's square enough. Doesn't have to be perfect. Now I go and put in 2 screws on the angle on all 8 junctions. Later we'll be coming back and putting bolts. So now that it's flipped, the bottom is now on the right. And because I have to be consistent, the existing ones that I've made have all had the diagonal going from bottom right to top left. So we'll replicate that now. I'm going to do it the easy way. Just going to lay the board on, mark it from underneath, then cut it, then screw it in. Alright, got my plugs back in my ears. Just going to go flip, cut, and place. Now since this is all going to get bolted down, this cross beam won't really need to keep screws in it. So I'm just going to put 2 in the middle to hold it from moving, and then we'll go ahead and put all the bolts in, and the screws will come out in the end. So the way you're looking at it here, with the bottom on the right, the panels actually sit on this surface. The vertical pieces are what the hinges mount to. So when we put the bolts in here, we want to go from top down with the nuts and any extra bolt hanging open into the open where it's not going to hurt anything. If it was turned around the other way, it might rub the back of a panel. We're keeping all the bolts away from the panels. Now we're going to have 4 bolts across the bottom, 4 across the top, and 4 diagonally. So for this double 2x4 bolt, we're using a 4-inch bolt with washers on both sides, and we're opting to use nylock nuts. We opted for the nylocks, that way even if the board's dry and shrink a little bit, the bolts aren't going to come loose on their own, and when we do find out that they're loose, we can go tighten them on our own. This is why you never throw away your scraps until you're done with the project. Now, as I said, we're just using washers on both sides and nylock nuts. I did forget to mention, all the hardware we're using here are 1/4 inch. The thought process is, in order to shear off a 1/4 inch bolt, you're more likely to shred the wood first, so it's not going to be the long pole here. So 1/4 inch is just fine. If you want to go bigger, that's fine. Worth noting that the 1/4 inch bolts also fit through the hinges, kind of makes it one and done. You only have to think about one size bolt. So now the bottom is close to the camera. We're going to be coming up 2/3 the way of these vertical boards, and that's where the hinges are going to go. So like on a trailer, we're going to have the load distributed in a way that it won't be floppy. So we'll have weight on the adjustment arm. If we find out that this is not good enough, we can always increase it to 3/4 or further. But I think 2/3 for now is going to work just fine. So once I measure up 40 inches on both sides, I'm going to run a board across to line up with those marks, clamp it into place. Then I'll come back and put the hinges in position, put 2 screws in, leaving the center hole open, and then we'll come back and drill those center holes to put the bolts through. On the single 2x4s, we'll be using 2.5 inch bolts, and then we'll use that 1 4-inch bolt that we didn't put in previously for the 4th one. Now, using the 2x4 I just clamped on as a straight edge, we'll push the hinges up against them and screw them in place, and that should make them as straight as they're going to be. Now the only thing left is that last 4-inch bolt that we put in. It sticks up a little proud, so we have to make it a little less proud. So with the sun fading, here's just a final look at what it looks like.